Whoa! Literally just came back. Doing pretty good. I just came back from rock climbing, but interior. Like climbing walls with the handles and stuff.
Okay, yeah, we're almost ready. Just want to pull up the documents real quick in case we have to bring these up for reference. I do thank everybody in the YouTube chat for their patience. Just need another like 30 seconds and we'll be getting started here. I got you, Tofu Monster. Hopefully that's better for you. Alright, that should do it. Hello everybody, thank you for attending this month's Q&A for July. I'm Neily, Director of the Recoded Project, and joining me today will be my project advisor, Jocab.
Oh.
So it's been a little bit since our last Q&A. I like to imagine everybody's got a couple questions they'd like to get out the door. So I just want to preface that we're going to try and have this Q&A be around an hour, as our last Q&A extended out to about 2 hours, which is a lot. So we want to try and make it just a little bit more digestible for people that want to go back and watch this on their own time. But this does not mean that your questions won't get answered, of course. If it's not here in the Discord or here in the YouTube, you're more than welcome to leave a message with us in the Recoded server, whether that's in the village, or if you have a more urgent request, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself or any of the other developers for a comment. Alright, and if anybody would like to get us started on some questions, we can...
Two questions from one from Zoer and MOR14. How is the revival of Brave Frontiers progressing?
The revival is progressing really smoothly, honestly. For something that's just a community project with no financial backing and, again, all coming purely from the community, it's been really exciting to see just how far everybody's been pushing themselves. And we're not going too hard like we were in the first year, giving ourselves burnout and pushing out an update just for the sake of having an update ready for the community. I think we've taken a much better, relaxed approach over the whole project, and it's been doing us a lot better in the long term, because now instead of doing a 1 month an update, we're doing it every 3 months, and that in turn allows us to deliver a much more fulfilling update for the community. So I think everything's going according to plan. We're right on track. I don't see any potential road bumps in the future or anything that's really going to stop us.
That's really what my update took. About a month for each thing. So the logo, a month. The audio, maybe a month and a half. So definitely a good change.
Massive change for sure.
All right.
I just want
one
to
question
preface to you, Jocab, real quick. We are also streaming on YouTube as well. I got that pulled up for questions too. If you want to like switch on and off, me and you take a break for questions, or however you want to do that.
Taking screenshots to have all questions in line.
Okay, that works.
A question from Royal Mask. According to what Mayday wanted to ask, will it be possible to play on the 3DS?
Playing on a 3DS, I don't see that being possible or feasible. Personally, I don't know if I'd really want to, because Nintendo, but I mean, in all seriousness though, we're going to be trying to aim for a desktop port first, because that's just what's going to be most accessible to all players, with mobile coming swiftly behind it, as long as, again, no intervening issues arise. I did, however, lightly joke on the fact that maybe we could have some sort of console support, maybe for like Xbox or PlayStation, since technically you can also access a browser on that. I believe you can also access a browser on a 3DS, but I'm not so sure how that would work, in all honesty. Um, I would say you're going to have a lot better of a chance maybe playing through a Steam Deck if you want to look into any sort of like console handheld. But a 3DS, I think that's a little bit too retro for us.
Next question is from Gogeta. What made you want to revive Brave Frontier?
Ooh, so I didn't originally have the anticipation of reviving Brave Frontier at all, actually. It was more so just a side project that I was working on back in 2023 of September, because I believe that's when the game shut down, was in July or August. So I didn't want to lose Brave Frontier as a whole because it meant so much to me as well as a bunch of other players. So what I did to keep it fresh for myself and, you know, keep the game alive in a sense was I added a program to my streams called StreamerBot, and then I wrote up a script that essentially allows me to have a Brave Frontier summon simulator inside of my streams. So if you go into, do I have it pulled up right now? I think I do. So if you go into my Twitch chat, there's a reward for Brave Frontier, and then you can redeem that, and then the following animations will play.
Only visible on YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry for this is only on for YouTube. I apologize for people in the Discord.
Basically, a redeem that shows a summon door.
Yes, so it plays the summon gates, it has the unit pedestal, it plays the unit sprite animation and attack, and I compiled a couple of clips of that, asking around if anybody wanted to help me further develop that project, adding more units, making it a little bit more advanced and technical. Then eventually I got reached out to by Kaz, or Sneeko, one of the other founders of the project, and they simply asked me, you know, do you think you could actually pull it off if you had the resources to do it? And I said, on one hand, I don't see why not, but on the other hand, I don't have the technical knowledge to go through all this myself. So we put out a post on Reddit, I believe September 19th, 16th, 19th, and that was essentially our beginning ground of Recoded. And ever since then, it's just kind of been a community effort on collecting the available members that can help us bring in, you know, the necessary talents to further progress our developments, as well as make it to where Recoded can actually be a self-sustaining project in the long run. So yeah, that is the origin story. A simple Twitch pseudo summon simulator turned into a full-blown gacha recreation.
I'm seeing a lot of questions from the Q&A, from the FAQ. If you guys want to give that a read, a lot of questions will be answered in that. So definitely give that a read, because I'm seeing a lot of questions from that are already answered in that. But the next question is from RRNK3235. Okay, when playing on an old phone, the game lagged to hell and back. Will I be able to use my god tier PC to run the game at max amazing 60 FPS and possible full screen?
Yes, you absolutely will be able to. I can relate to this because I also had to play on a lower end device for a little while. It was primarily the reasons why I started to move it over to iPhones was just because their processing chips were the most efficient at being able to handle all of Brave Frontier's excessive animations and sprites and everything else going on under the hood. But yes, you will be able to use your RTX super beefed up Threadripper PC to play Recoded at a stable 60 FPS with full screen and whatever size resolution you have. What I would recommend is, if you don't have a vertical monitor set up already, would highly recommend that, because when Brave Frontier was still around, having it on a much larger display like that, rather than it being horizontal, taking up the entire screen, very, very satisfying. Could not recommend more.
is from Dragon Hero. Here's one I need to address this elephant in the room because I didn't know this, and this is abysmal. Why is there RNG in leveling up units? Why does this exist and makes things inconsistent for no reason? And will this ever be addressed since I felt this was nothing but detrimental? I literally did not know this. I can send you the image if you want.
Sure.
An image with it.
So this is funny enough, something that we've been talking about recently, actually, as part of the recovery reduction update that'll be coming out in September. We were more primarily looking at recovery, but then growth rates also came into discussion, and we think that we will be making some adjustments to that to give even further transparency, along with what your stats will be at the end. To touch more on the technical side of this, I've done some experimenting for a long time on a lot of the quest obtainable units, like Bernie, for example. And for HP, it can range from anywhere from about a 30 to a 50 point HP difference, whereas an attack can range anywhere from a typically 10 to 22, 25 range in difference, attack, defense, and recovery. And this, of course, would scale higher and higher as the rarities would go. So eventually it could be the difference of 100 or 200 attack or defense, or for HP in this case, maybe an extra 200 or 300 HP. So it is something that we're going to be addressing, maybe not as soon as the recovery update's concerned, but it is on our bulletin board of things that we want to correct in the future.
Next question is from Marinator14. Do you plan to add new battle mechanics, or at least mechanics from later in the game's systems?
Probably not. We want to try and follow the original timeline as close as we possibly can. There's going to be a couple of exceptions, of course, like we discussed previously with units that have mitigation properties. For example, reduce damage by 50% for 1 turn or 2 or 3, however many. Main reasons being that the defense and mitigation was something that kind of overpowered the game in the long run. So before we jump the gun and adding future abilities or mechanics, we want to make sure that we have the core systems in place first, so that way when we do eventually get to that 6, 7, 8 star era, that everything's going to be in a much more linear, stable fashion. That way there's no power creep once you get to, say, the underworld, or you get to the 7th star rarity. All your 5 and 6 star units won't effectively all be rendered useless because of those changes.
Questions from Akre. Sorry if this has been asked in previous Q&As, but will the Frontier Hunter events be returning? If so, how would they be implemented?
We do have Frontier Hunter on our list of things that we would like to bring back. As far as how they're going to function exactly is still yet to be decided. We've discussed lately on possibly setting some sort of point cap. That way there's no possibility of people exceeding values that would in turn break the game, or in this case cheat the leaderboard system. It's still very, very in the beginning phases of how we could possibly do something like that, but as far as just the game mode Frontier Hunter and all the other dungeons associated with Frontier, they will be coming back at some point.
Question is for Obsolete Expense. Is there still going to be stamina/energy bar like in the original BF?
Yes, there will still be an energy bar. We have been working on a document to change how that system works. In the original game, it used to be 1 energy for every 10 minutes, then eventually it got switched to every 5 minutes, eventually down to every 3 minutes. In Recoded, it will be swapped to 1 energy per minute. Additionally, the max energy value, I believe, was somewhere in the 300 range. Let me double check. Max energy for a summoner of level 999 was 431. In Recoded, it has also been increased to be up to 500 energy. We have had some brief discussions on potentially furthering that energy cap by allowing players to have a prestige system. And what this means is that you'd be able to hit level 999, go prestige, reset your player count back down to level 1, and then you could still technically gain those free energy resets like you would before you hit max level. Reason why we want to keep energy is just so that there's, again, staying faithful to the game as it once was, and we don't see energy being a problematic issue for players, especially since we're going to be giving out so many gems and other things to help aid players in their journey. Other than that, though, energy is going to be a remaining staple of the game, just like how gems are, just like how summon is. Everything's going to be staying exactly the same, just with minor tweaks to make it a more engaging and fulfilling experience.
Next question is from Zephyr. We add on EU servers units like Enki or Galahad, who need copies of themselves to evolve, and both times they were farmable in their respective Vortex dungeon. Is this idea any good, and will it be implemented here in Recoded? Maybe with bigger list of units?
So I will admit I was not the biggest EU player. I was on EU servers for around 6 to 8 months before I retired. This was before, I believe, 7 stars or Omnis were even a thought at this point. There was a system called... there was a system with evolving units into higher rarities with different shards and elemental books. That way you can get Omni plus 1, 2, and 3, whether that was with the shards or using a duplicate unit. As far as needing a unit to directly evolve into the next stage, for example, like Fei and Fang, if you have Fei, you need to capture Fang to evolve them into Fei and Fang. We'll probably keep those systems in place if we see that it's maybe a little bit too difficult for players. We may adjust the drop rates to where it's a little bit more feasible to obtain those characters. As far as adjusting the evolution lines of any units is not something that we're looking to do at this moment. We have, however, had the possibility of maybe cycling out some units that have, say, 3 of one unit for their evolution. So let's say they have 3 fire spirits or 3 fire idols, 3 fire totems, for example. One of those units may be swapped out with a fire bulb just to add a little bit more variety. That way we don't have 6, 7 different units that all have the exact same evolution requirements.
Seen a lot of question about, is it playable on this, is it playable on that? I think definitely summoners, you should read the FAQ because that is all answered in that. Basically, if you have a browser, the game will be browser-based. Anything that has a browser should be able to run the game because it will be browser-based. We also have a lot of questions about if Alim and Gumi are going to strike this down, or what is the next steps when Gumi or Alim decide to strike this down, and what's the expected kickback from Alim Gumi. This is also answered in the FAQ, so definitely read that. But to summarize, if Gumi Alim decides to strike us, we cannot do anything about it because we are not a corporation. We cannot fight back, and this is their IP, so we have no choice to cease operations. And concerning when it concerns to the steps taken afterwards, we will either cease operations or just make our own game. So that's basically the steps that are going to be taken after that. So definitely read the FAQ if you haven't, because a lot of questions I'm seeing already answered in the FAQ. The next questions is from 1-star Bernie. Can you show Shamrocky? This is the only thing I want in life.
We won't be able to show Shamrocky just yet. Don't worry though, he is coming. He's going to be, we are anticipating on revealing him part of spring 2026. Believe me, I'm very, very excited to show off Shamrocky too. He's I between him and Lovey, I'm divided by which one I love more. I think they're both super, super great, and our artist really killed it.
See, I'm also seeing a lot of questions about release dates, which is also answered in the FAQ. So if you haven't read the FAQ, you should absolutely do that. The gist of it is we do not have a release date at the moment. Everything is such speculations because the reason we are not putting a release date at the moment on the project is that it is a voluntary based project. There is nobody's being paid for this. It's all volunteers in their free time. So putting a hard release date or hard deadlines on this project would be not really morally correct because nobody's being paid for this. Everybody's a volunteer, so there is no release date at the moment. The next question is from...
I just want to add one comment. We will be talking more about this come the end of the year when we discuss update 26, which is going to be the playtest possibilities. So we're not going to be confirming, again, about a release date. We're not saying that once update 26 drops that the next update will in turn be the game releasing. We're just going to be talking more on that topic of what steps do we need to take to get something out to the community, what steps do we need to take to actually reach those pre-alpha, alpha, beta stages to where we can comfortably say Recode is ready. So stay tuned for that towards the end of the year. I believe we have that set for December 28th. I could be incorrect on the date, but it is going to be towards the end of December. Last Saturday of December.
Also seeing a lot of questions about, some questions about funding. That is also another thing that's answered in the FAQ. And the reason we do not have crowdfunding is because it is not our IP and it is not our assets, and we want to avoid any kind of monetary gain, whether it be for profit or non-profit, because when it comes to money, the risk of being taken down DMCA increases tenfold. So there is no funding for that reason. The next question is from Akira. To what extent will the server capabilities return? Is it going to be something like an RPG game and be one player or something? Like a browser server, like Poker Rogue?
For the initial release, it may be a single player experience because we're still going to have to build up other systems like the friend system, as well as challenging other players in things like Arena or Challenge Arena, going on quests together like raids. So more than likely it'll be a single player experience to start once we get to our pre-alpha alpha stages. Once we get more towards beta, that's probably when we'll open up more functionalities for those online features previously mentioned. Online is going to be its own battle between having the server management, between having security for profiles, as well as making sure all the events and such run smoothly as expected. So it's something that we're going to have to be very, very on top of once we get ready for that stage.
A lot of questions about... I'm not sure that's in turn the fact, but I think so.
I just want to...
I
just want to cut in for a second. If there is anybody in the YouTube chat, by the way, I'll be dropping a link here for the FAQ on the Recoded website. If you do have a question that has already been answered, you're still welcome to ask it. Jocab will, of course, help me in giving an answer, or if you need a more in-depth answer on a question that you're unsure of, please review the FAQ on our website or in the Discord beforehand, and then we will try to give you a better answer if necessary.
Question is from Tofu Monster, but I've seen a lot of them. Are crossover events still being implemented in Recoded?
Crossover events will not be returning in Recoded due to licensing agreements between the parent company. As mentioned, we are not Elim, we are not Gumi, we do not have the rights to Brave Frontier, nor do we have the rights to any of the collaboration characters. So, for example, Brave Frontier once did a collab with Disney, and they did a collab specifically with Star Wars. Now, if any of you all know Disney and you know how popular Star Wars is, that can possibly get us shut down, sued, and maybe even more in a heartbeat. Because again, it's not just Alim or Gumi that owns those characters in the Brave Frontier style. They're also owned by the parent company in question, Disney, the people that made Chain Chronicles, any of the animes, Phantom of the Kill, for example, or Trigun, another one, Tokyo Ghoul. Those are all within their respective rights, and by adding those characters to the game, we would also be even more at risk, not with just Alim or Gumi now, but now that third party is also going to be involved as a potential leverage on their side to getting us shut down even sooner than later. So yeah, no collaboration characters will be returning. However, if there is a collaboration character specifically that had a kit that was exclusive to their character and can't be recreated, we may take a look at adding a recoded exclusive character or reworking somebody else's kit in Brave Frontier to match those desired skills as necessary. Legato Blue Summers was a Trigun collab character that exclusively had a ultimate where you can get an extra action per turn. This was the most pay-to-win character towards the end of the game's life cycle, and it was very prominent if you were trying to do higher quest content. Because you didn't have that character, instantly your Dark Team was now always going to be weaker than any of your other elements. That is something that we want to make sure never happens again, and make sure that every element has equal playing ground across all dungeons in the game.
I think mentioning the fact is really insightful on that, because yeah, the collab characters are not necessarily just owned by Gumi; they're collaborations, so they're also owned by another company, which makes it double the difficulty of having it's double the risk basically. So that's why they will not be returning. And also, I've seen a lot of questions about how if a collab character could be returning with their own original art, that is definitely an option. But when it comes, also I've seen a question about likeness, about I'm gonna get the question actually. I'm not. It's from Nikolai. I'm not familiar with how assets are managed, but to avoid copyright strikes from Gumi, is there any way to alter the assets to avoid infringing on copyright while keeping the same game mechanics? That is definitely an option. However, it would have to be completely different. I think the thing that is really the risk here is the art, because the mechanics, not really. But if we would have to make our own assets, it would have to be completely original.
Yeah, and to tag on to that too, another reason why we're not 100% scared of Gumi or Alim sending us AC Sword Assist, or not too worried, rather than say scared. At the end of the day, yes, Gumi and Alim does own the art and assets to Brave Frontier, but we, the developers, own the code. It was specifically stated inside their end user license agreement, all the way back from 2013 and to now, that there is no acceptance for reverse engineering their code. With Recoded, we built up our own code from the ground up. So, yes, we may not have the assets, but we still have the core gameplay and functionalities of Brave Frontier. So, like Jocab said, if worse comes to worse, we still have Brave Frontier, but it may be called something else, like the Heroes of Gaia, for example, and it would be a whole new cast of characters, probably a whole new story as well, but it would still be in that realm of Brave Frontier gameplay.
The next would be Chill Kais. What would I need to know / learn in the coding software tech side to show that I can be capable contributor to the project?
So you need to have a couple things of experience. Primarily with C Sharp and C++ are the more desired ones that we are looking for as far as coding languages go. Our game engine is Godot. We're specifically using version 3.5.2. Also need to have some knowledge on using Docker and JS Note for JavaScripts. If you do have any knowledge of those languages or programs, you're more welcome to shoot an application to the Recoded website once we open up coding applications again. We'll probably do that again sometime around the beginning of 2026, as last year was very successful for us. So we're going to open up submissions again soon enough, and you'll be able to reach out to us again then.
The next question is from Albie199800. What is the most difficult thing you are facing in bringing back the game from a programming perspective?
From a programming perspective,
We're gonna have to ask the devs for that.
yeah, we have to pull in one of the coders for that specifically. The main things that I'm seeing just from the overview of the whole project is there's just a lot of fine-tuning when pulling data back and forth between servers and the game itself. More primarily having bigger assets like Brave Burst, bigger unit data like Gausia, like 7, 8 stars, for example, that take up more abilities, more screen space, stuff like that. Overall, though, again, like Jocab said, from the programming side, we would have to get one of our coders in on that to give a more thorough and in-depth answer. We will be having one of our coders for a Q&A coming up in 2026 as well. They've been doing tremendous work on the project and have been delivering a lot of amazing content to us, and we're really excited to show off more of their work come the end of the year.
Right. The next question is from... actually, there's a question from UAQ we just answered. C Sharp, I think, is the language, programming language?
Yes, C Sharp and C++.
C Sharp and C++ are the programming languages. From UAQ. From Mystical69 Zebra, if it hasn't been asked yet, if you plan on working on bringing back our summoner, will the team eventually try to implement new weapon types? I'm not sure what that means.
So, just give you an answer. Once you beat the main game, you could play as the summoner yourself once you went on your own personal journey, and then you can kind of customize your outfit, your armor, your weapons, and stuff like that. As far as adding new weapons, however, I don't think that's anything that we're going to be doing for quite a long time, given that the Summoner and Third Arc is some of the last remaining pieces of content for Brave Frontier. It's definitely something that's on the table, though. It's a possibility. I know a couple people have mentioned one of the Guilty Gear collaboration weapons. I believe it was called the Junkyard or the Trash Dog, something like that. As mentioned before, with collaboration items, we wouldn't be able to have the Guilty Gear weapon returning. So if there is a specific stat or ability that weapon happened to have, then we would probably look into making a new weapon for those abilities. That way we're getting around that gray area of collaboration.
Right, next question from Mr. Mecht. This may be far into the future, but will so-called exploits such as the IUBB loop return and stay until the original game fixed it, or will you fix it on release?
It'll be fixed on release. So Recoded is going to be aimed to have no bugs, no exploiting, no cheating. We're going to be very on top of players to make sure that this never happens. We want players to have a fulfilling experience. We don't want them to have the desire to feel like they have to cheat in the game. There's really no reason for players to cheat. We do understand that it is a single player experience, more or less, but at the same time, you are going to be interacting with other summoners whether that's in the arena, in raids, or going competitively inside of Frontier Hunter. So if we do happen to catch anybody cheating or exploiting, then more than likely we will be issuing out some bans. Of course, if it is something that is brought to our attention first, before we, the developers, find out, we may end up rewarding the player for finding said exploits and reporting them to the developers, rather than sharing them around and in turn risking other people getting in trouble for their cheating behaviors. So yes, cheating, hacking, exploiting, all that sorts, we want to have none of that for Recoded.
Right. We have a from Cross. I'm not sure what that means, but from Shenpai, ask if the people who killed the 6 heroes will get a 7-star form.
The people who killed the 6 heroes will get a 7-star form. I don't want to say yes or no as far as making additional unit art or additional rarities for other characters. That's not something that we're looking to do at the moment. However, we are looking to devolve some characters, primarily ones that are 5-star and up. That way they can be a little bit more accessible to the player base earlier on into the game, as well as offer additional squad management within a much larger unit pool. Once we get to a stable point where we can further look at potentials like that, maybe once we hit the 6-7-star era, we can go back and look at a unit that maybe caps out at a 5-star and say, okay, is anybody on our art team perhaps interested in evolving this character once more? For example, Kaz is very prominent about wanting to have Gun God Douglas get a 7-star or potentially an 8-star in the future. So, not saying that it's going to happen, but there's always the possibility. So, just gotta wait and see.
Right, next question from Mr. Hiope. Why isn't the game made on Roblox? There are a lot of players there, and it's playable on almost any device.
Because you can't recreate Brave Frontier inside of Roblox, unfortunately. You can make a Brave Frontier...
But, like, it's way less control that you have.
Yeah, Could you well, Jocab, you play Roblox more than I do. Could you technically have a whole 2D interface and whatnot locked in?
You could, but like that's the whole thing. Roblox is in control because you are making your game inside Roblox, so they basically are in control of if they want to shut you down, they shut you down. And unfortunately, Roblox has this this trend of not being very transparent. So if they shut down your game, they could just shut down your game and give you no reason for it. That has happened before. And,
yeah, that doesn't seem too
Roblox
exciting.
also is notoriously jank to work with, so that's why. Next up, I think it's a very good question. Question from Nairo333. Can I ask for your opinions on a Stop Killing Games initiative?
I've been vaguely following that, if you happen to be able to give me a summary on that.
All right. Well, the Stop Killing Games initiative is a initiative for it's a petition in the EU for basically the EU like senators or council and the government to review a bill about the possibility of basically 1 million signatures was signed for the government to look at games and how they are basically they can be shut down at any time without being reimbursed, even though you have bought and purchased the product. And the petition, the initiative, were basically asking for developers to be forced to have an end of life planned for their games to still be playable after shutdown. Not necessarily keep the servers open forever, but make the game playable after shutdown, whether it be single player, self-hosted, servers hosted by the community, but be still playable and not shut down. And I think that's very a very good question, because if that thing was if the Stop Killing Games initiative was live, we would not be doing this. Brave Frontier would have an end of life goal, which we would still be able to play it in some way.
Now, does that hold up through microtransactions though? Because Brave Frontier was technically a free product that you could pay in-app purchases for. So I'm not too sure how that would hold up technically.
I'm not sure about what like free games would end up in, but I think it's still like if your game has in-game purchases, I think it would still apply because you've purchased stuff in the game, and then the game shuts down, and you don't have access to the stuff you purchased,
Right.
which is incredibly unfair, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So if the Stop Killing Games initiative was live, Brave Frontier would still be playable, I think. So that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing initiative.
It's definitely a great idea all around because there's been a couple of games that have suffered that same fate. Like, what was it? The Crew, right? Ubisoft.
Yes, exactly. That's where it started.
Okay. Yeah. So The Crew being a prominent example, I've also kind of experienced this firsthand with Rocksmith because they wanted to shut that down even though it was already purchased or DLC was purchased, and now they want to force you to move on to a Rocksmith Plus or Premium. Yeah, all around terrible thing for developers to be doing. I'm glad that there is finally an initiative to take action against that. Specifically, as well, a more recent game, Payday 3, has also shown some signs of possibly shutting down in the future, and they've been teasing since pretty much the beginning of the game's life cycle that they're going to have an offline mode for the game. And if anybody's familiar, the first and second game are also playable offline single player just as much as you want to. Payday 3, however, also suffers that same fate where you have to be online to play it. So, yeah, if that got shut down and I got told, well, you gotta go kick rocks now, and I just lost $90, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed off too. So, yeah, let's hope that law gets passed. That way everybody else around the world takes it into effect. Developers are getting... Sorry. AAA developers are getting away with way too much stuff nowadays, especially Activision. So they need to be corrected in their practices for sure.
Right, I'm going to stop taking questions at this time because we have a lot, and we're approaching the 1 hour mark. The next question is from a Christian Bio. Ooh, Prestige sounds cool. So would you be able to get a second sphere that is given at level 999? Heaven's Edge, I believe it was called.
Yes, it was called Heaven's Edge, the sphere for reaching max level. We don't know yet if we would give out another Heaven's Edge. We would probably have some sort of mock-up sphere like Heaven's Edge. You know, maybe like Guardian's Edge or something like that, right? As far as what the rewards would be, though, we're not entirely sure just yet because we don't want to jump too far in the future and say these are what the rewards will be, and then once the time actually comes, we made a massive mistake by making something too overpowered or too underpowered for such an achievement. The rewards will be bountiful, though. To go along with that, you'll also have the energy resets like before, so energy, raid orb, and arena orb resets. So it'll still be like you're leveling up just as before, but now you're prestige, pushing your way up through the thousands.
Right. Next question is from Akre and a ton of other people about gem distribution. How would gem be acquired? You mentioned giving gems to player. Do you have any idea of how gem distribution would work aside from completing quests and events? And also, how grindy will the game be? Will players be forced to grind? How would that work?
Okay, so we'll split that into two. I'll answer the grinding question afterwards. Gems are going to be given out just as they were before, whether that was through a daily login campaign, completing a quest, reaching a high rank in the arena, the Frontier Hunter, or Challenge Arena, stuff like that. Primarily with our login campaigns as well, we're going to be having a separate login system, just purely giving out a gem each day that a player logs in. So this means that if you play Recoded every day, even if you just log in for 2 minutes, 30 seconds even, just to get into the game, you'll be given a gem to your account. So that means by the end of the year, you'll have 365 gems purely just from logging in. Not doing a quest, not doing arena, not doing anything else but just booting up the game. Now, combine that with all the other systems in place, like our login campaigns, arena, Frontier Hunter, Raid. It's expected that an average player will be able to obtain anywhere between 250 to 500 gems in a year, whereas a more advanced player could possibly reach 500 to 1,000 gems in a year. Now, to talk on the grinding of the game, we'd want to try and reduce the amount of grind for late game. For early game, we think it's in a pretty healthy position. There's nothing that's too demanding that you grind overly excessively for. For any of our late game players that happen to remember a particular item called the Victory Chant, that pretty much required you having to do almost like 300 to 350 raids, if I'm not mistaken. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of grinding. We're going to reduce that down heavily to where materials and items like that are a lot more feasible to obtain. You're not going to have to quite literally grind out an entire month worth of playtime just to get one item for one character. I want to say it's more or less going to be the same all around for early game, but late game is where we'll be primarily looking at to reduce some of that grindiness. But overall, same systems, same mechanics, everything's just about the same.
Next question is from Obsolete Expense. Have you guys thought about possibly buying the IP for Brave Frontier? I was gonna say Battlefield because BF.
Been playing Battlefield 1 too much.
For real.
We have talked about it as a possibility. Looking at Gumi recent stock numbers, it seems like they're actually making some good business moves for themselves, which of course is good to hear because we do want Brave Frontier to just stay alive as an IP rather than possibly being sold off to somebody like Disney or Nintendo even, God forbid. The initial financial response was that we would raise $50,000, which would translate into 2.3 million yen. At the time, it seemed like a good offer to at least get us the license for the game. Definitely not outright buy the rights, because I believe Gumi as a company is worth almost 340 billion at this point, even with all of their crashing and let's say unsuccessful projects. However, that doesn't mean that they're going to exactly scoff at a $2 million offer either, just to let us use something that they're not even using themselves, if that makes sense. So we're not at a position yet to where we can hand them a minimum viable product and say, we're ready and able to do this. We essentially just need your blessing. But if worse comes to worse, that's when we could possibly look into a Kickstarter or crowdfund to acquire that license, to where Recoded could still live under the Brave Frontier titleship, but now being able to live on as we see fit.
The next question is from Doug King Riku X. Don't know if this has been asked before, but due to later powerful units, will there be a possibility of more powerful versions of fights like versus Maxwell and so on?
So essentially asking for like a hard mode or New Game Plus.
New Game Plus, maybe?
We've talked about New Game Plus. That was kind of going to go hand in hand with our prestige system, and then possibly a hard mode going down the line. So you would essentially be fighting all of their characters at their max potential, their max stats, their max abilities. Again, it's still way too early to tell right now how we want to approach that and what would be the steps for taking that. But it's definitely something that we've thought of before.
Next from Not Emperor Palpatine. What keeps you guys motivated?
You guys, of course, the community. At the end of the day,
I think the community's reaction is keeping us motivated, personally.
absolutely. The community, just every time you guys send us a message, or you're in the Discord, YouTube comments, Reddit, Facebook, uh, even on the Recoded website, we get messages from you guys all the time. And I'll admit it's a little much at times, because especially on the website we sometimes get like 30, 40 messages a day. But at the end of the day, it's really heartwarming, because we know how much it means not only to us, but to so many other players around the world that also want to go back to Grand Gaia. So it's it's an all around just big emotional hug from the entire world. Really, I feel that we all want to see Recoded live and grow big, and having the community right there beside us to see it through is what's keeping us more motivated than anything else.
I'm definitely like the community's reaction, especially when I did the last update and people were in chat saying, "Oh, there's no more gaps between songs. Ain't that crazy? Oh, look at that. The new logo's sick." That's just like that's peak. There's
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing better.
When you guys show us support for our work, it in turn makes us want to do more work for you guys in turn. So, again, from everybody on the Recode team, just give yourselves a big pat on the back, because at the end of the day, we're making a game, but you guys being here with us is what's making the game even better than ever.
The next question is from Acre again. Would you implement a unit trading system, or is that out of the question to stay faithful to the original?
Uh, See, it's funny, because when I was a new player too, I was always wondering, like, you know, why isn't there a trading system? That'd be so cool to have. Um, I don't want to say never, but I don't want to say it's going to happen either. It's kind of a gray area, because that all more or less comes down to profile management and more back end resources on making sure that somebody doesn't send out a cracked unit that has 1 million attack power or something like that. So it's a possibility, but an unlikely one.
Zico69 Zebra asks, a single game experience at first, so will we be able to build teams of 6 at first, pick a friend from our own roster, or pre-set up friend leaders? I hope I worded that correctly.
So to start, you'll be able to build your own squad of 5. For the 6th member in the squad, your friend or the guest, the other person in your squad, we'll probably have a couple of preset friends that you can choose from, like Carl, Syria, Lugina, Groddens. That way you can take a story character on the quest with you. Having the functionality to fill in your own 6th member is something that would probably come in a couple updates after the fact, once we did have that system in place. I don't see us having the friend system and all ready right away. So more than likely, for the public test build and pre-alpha and all that, it would probably just be, like I said, limited to a select cast of the story characters. Tillith, of course, being one of the options.
Next question is from Dark Hub. How will summon gates work? Will they be like BF2 with the unit selection at a higher cost, or will it be on a rotation for a higher rates of selected units? What about units who never got higher tiers like Rogun? Will they be added at all, or will they be receiving higher rarity than was originally created?
Okay, bit of a big question there. So with Rogan specifically, he will be returning. He won't be getting another evolution line going from a 6 to a 7-star. I know, I'm sad. I love Rogan too, but we just can't guarantee a 7-star or anything at this point yet. Uh, and then what was the first part of that question? Oh wait, summon gate rotation. Yeah. So we're gonna have the summon gates on rotation, just like as it was before. It's gonna be more like Brave Frontier 1, than 2. There's going to be so many gems being given out that we don't think there's going to be a necessity to have a unit choice selector. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have them for, say, like the anniversary or something, but it's not something that we're going to have be the main focus point of the game. Uh, gems will cost, or sorry, summons will cost 5 gems. Honor summons will cost 200 points. Once we get to a later stage in the game, like 5, 6, 7 stars, or even omnis, then we would have separate gates set up for those unit batches. So, for example, if we're on the 7-star era, then all of those 7 stars will cost 5 gems. But for everybody that can't get a 7-star, they'll be put into a separate unit pool where you can summon them for 4 gems instead.
We got 7 questions left, or 6 questions left.
Okay.
Since you talked about making your own game if anything happens, would you ever release your own original units?
Yeah, probably. It's been a discussion before on would the development team add their own units to the game. I did this a while ago just for funsies because I'm a big fan of Keymaster Gilnia. So I put my persona in Keymaster Gilnia's outfit. And this would more or less probably be what I would do if I added myself into the game. Uh, I thought it would be cool to have a separate dungeon where you essentially fight me and the rest of the Recoded team, and as you collect wins from each match, you would get a Recoded shard. After you collect all the shards, you'd be able to essentially make one super item that allows you access to fight me as the last character. Reason being why I would be the last fight in the game is just because I have a unique ability for the character. As you can see, he's holding the Brave Frontier gem. So if you have me in your squad and you happen to die, I'll use the gem in my hand to give you a free revive for that fight. So something that wouldn't happen until we completed the game way, way later on down the line. Like I said, Omnis, Summoner's Arc, all that stuff would all be done first. And then we would take a look at adding ourselves into the game or making more developer-focused content on ourselves.
Next up, in the same sense, in the same kind of question, will there be community opportunity to help create these EU units and original characters, at least in regard to design or ability tweaks, art competitions, or donation to non-profit, community voting also?
I definitely would like to have that in place at some point. I don't know when exactly would be that time frame in our like pre-alpha to launch state. It would more than likely be something post-launch, probably even like version 2.0, if anything. Uh, Reason being is that we want to keep the faithfulness in Brave Frontier as true as long as we can. Not saying that we don't want to be open for custom characters or custom content, but we also want to make sure that the quality of said custom characters lives up to the standard that Brave Frontier holds. So essentially, you wouldn't be able to submit a stick doodle and then if for whatever reason by chance that won, let's say, we probably still wouldn't allow that into the game because it's not faithful to the art style of Brave Frontier.
This question is from Kyle Weffley. Development team has an opportunity here. I think your development team has an opportunity here. After you finish this product, you absolutely should make your own game. BF gameplay is a heavily desired one.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, I thought about it before with the team that we had or that we have currently. That if things do go south, we do just kind of rebrand under our own studio and then take the code that we have now and repurpose that into a different game, and then hopefully become millionaires off of that, and then we can keep a Brave Frontier S game alive for generations.
Gonna make it so pay to win, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah, guys.
Money, bro.
$100 per quest easily.
Easy. Nah. All right, next question from Royal Mask about the bug fixing. There are some fun bugs though, no? That aren't too strong, like how Kaiser slimes had a huge imp count or something interesting like that. Will those inconsequential bugs still be around?
I wouldn't necessarily call that a bug, for how much the Kaisers had. I think that was actually an intended feature for them to have so much imp potential. Uh, for like all other bugs though, like for a more serious one, like Hatteron casting stealth on himself and then being immune to any super attacks or essentially cheesing throughout the entire game, all the trials and stuff like that. It's more stuff like that that we want to try and prevent from ever happening. We don't want players to just cheese through the game. We want there to be some sort of strategy, which is also why we won't have an auto button for quite some time because we want players to be engaged. We don't want players to hop on, press auto, and then just put their phone down and then just call it a day. It's something that I've noticed has become very apparent in a lot of gotcha games and just mobile games as a whole. Is that once you get to a certain point, you just hit auto and then the game essentially plays itself. Not that we don't want to eventually allow that once we get to that point, but we want to try and refrain from it as much as possible. And stopping bugs like that is going to be the first step in preventing those desires.
We got one more question from Mr. Mech. Last question. It's too late to ask questions, but I wonder if they will link some units, such as the Maxwell mock units, to let the 6 stars evolve to the Omni version rather than have them be separate units.
For the mock characters like Maxwell, uh, that probably won't happen for those characters specifically. A unit batch that I can refer to that may undergo those changes are the Battle Maidens, because they do have a 7 star and Omni form that was separated from the summon gates, whereas the I believe it was 3 star to 6 star was available inside the vortex. So it's something that is on the table as being a potential change. We're not sure yet what those changes would be because there's such a drastic power scaling difference between both the 3 to 6 stars and then the 7 to Omni. But it is something that we are possibly looking into.
You got some comments here I would like to read.
Sure.
Tofu Monster is saying, "Are you open to the idea of creating a PO box for fan mail?" I mean, you can join the Discord server. I think that'd be a good idea. We're always pretty much active, so if you want to just like send us a message in there, we will probably see it if you ping us as well. We we got other comments from the chat here from Nairo.
I'm gonna say we got. I know I said I wanted to stick to an hour, but I started like a little bit later than 10 minutes, so we can go for like another 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. We got some other comments about how please don't do a Yandere dev. Please don't do pirate software. I think the difference between them and us is that they are paid. Yandere dev was funding his own game, and obviously that didn't really turn out great because, I mean, the coding and the whole situation. But I think the difference between them and us is that we make it clear that we're volunteers. This is a volunteer project and a volunteer community project. So we're not being forced to do this. We're doing this in our free time. So the game will come when it will come, right? We're not making promises. We're not all like, oh, we're gonna go this year, guys. This game will fully release 100% this year. Like, no, that's not gonna happen. And we make it very clear. I think that's very good to note down that this is a community project made by several people out of their free time, out of their free will and contribution, and that is what differentiates us from the other projects that fail in the same way. I think everybody should remember that. All right. This game is gonna fully release in 2017, right? Yeah, done.
In 2017. think we got somebody
Wasn't it?
from the.
Wasn't it still open in that year?
Yeah, it was still open in 2017. I think
All
we
right,
got
I'm
we got
still
a time traveler.
seeing. All right, I'm still seeing a lot of questions from the FAQ. So remembering y'all again to read the FAQ. A lot of questions I'm seeing are answered in the FAQ, as in the question of the release date. There is no currently any release date. It's all speculations. Please read the FAQ. There's more detail about that, and about collab units as well. Collab units will not be returning. Please read the FAQ. There is more details in that. And be coded on 3DS when? I don't know why people are obsessed with
Is
the
that is the
3DS.
3DS like a meme or something that I missed out on?
I don't
Like,
know. Isn't the 3DS store and all that stuff shut down? I don't
I
think it
I,
wouldn't even be
I believe
possible.
it is. Yeah.
Will Mad King Narza by Codex Code EXC doc? Will Mad King Narza finally get out of 5-star meta?
Ooh, Mad King Narza. That is a unit that I definitely would like us to give a little bit of a glow up because he was a very cool character, but extremely underwhelming in terms of squad potential. So I don't know if he would get a 7-star per se, but I definitely want to give him a couple buffs to make him a little bit more of a viable unit.
I've also seen a lot of questions about like offline mode. Will the game be single player offline? And I think that's a very good question that is also answered in the fact, so you should probably read the fact. But the gist of it is the game will be online and there will be servers. But the way Blue, our main coder, our lead coder, was talking, he is making sure that the game will still be playable even if we fail to run the servers. So there will be an APK, I think, that he mentioned.
And I would like to also add as well that even if we do reach an online playable state at one point, and we do happen to get a cease and desist letter from Gumi, players will be able to have their saves locally stored on their PC. And eventually, we do plan on making it open source. That way, people can host private servers for themselves or for their own separate groups of players, more so referring to guilds and such. So, even if Recoded Online shuts down, you'll still have all of your content saved and be able to play it in that offline format.
Old summons were question by Mystical 69 Zebra. The old summons were just a black screen with a summon gate. I hope to maybe see the art for summons expanded upon, like some scenery added around the gates. Thank you for your hard work, fellas.
Um, Maybe not
I
by default, but that could be something as like a quality of life feature that players could toggle or change for themselves, but not something that we would want to change outright for the entire game because we again our goal is to stay as faithful as possible where allowing more quality of life adjustments where applicable.
when it comes to making some small changes, some small artistic changes like that, I think it's a good idea, but I think it should stay faithful, and also the game should be finished before we start doing that.
Exactly.
Like, unless it doesn't take away from development time, because the developer is already busy enough of remaking the base systems of the game. Asking them to code in some artistic changes like that would take away their time from developing the functional gameplay of the game. So that's something we want to avoid for now. But later, if the community wants it, if there's a suggestion, I think it's a good idea. One of the if you've watched the latest update, it was about the audio. One of the good things about that update is that it doesn't take away from development time whatsoever. It's simply a replacement of files. So there's really nothing. It's just the sounds being changed. There's really nothing that is being taken away from development time here. So that's why those kind of updates are possible at the moment. But if it takes away from if it requires a dev to actively work on it, I don't think that's a very good idea at the moment. All right. Another question. I think a lot of people asked this question: how much is Brave Frontier finished? What's the percentage? How playable is the state of the game at the moment?
So what you see here currently for everybody on YouTube, I'll pull up on Discord as well. That way our Discord viewers can also watch. As you've been seeing in the updates, the game is playable in the means of the sprite controller is working. You can do some abilities like activate your Brave Burst. You can guard if necessary. We have the healing crystals, Zal Karma, battle crystals, and a couple other features. The percentage of the game being complete from a minimum viable product standpoint, I would want to say is maybe around 10 to 20% on the grand scale of everything that is Brave Frontier. Again, Arena, second arc, third arc, Brave Frontier 2, all of our other goals going way further down the line. We've honestly just barely scratched the surface, and saying that we're at like 1 or 2% even is the most realistic answer. Because again, there's so much content in Brave Frontier that we've really just started beginning the whole process of not just the sprite controller and the dungeons, but eventually moving on to menus and UIs, profile management, and so much more things that happen behind the scenes that the players don't really get to experience firsthand.
The current thing the devs are focused on right now is because I've seen a lot of people saying, "Hey, the build in the videos, why can't we play that?" Right? But it's not even. I don't think you would be very fulfilled with it. It's literally just it's just literally what they're working on at the moment is seeing if the units move correctly, if when you press buttons, the correct animation plays or action happens, and the correct sprites display at where exactly on screen, if they're representative of what is currently happening. There's really not much at the moment. It's really just the battle scene being developed. The core gameplay of Brave Frontier in general is the battle scene, right?
Yes.
Because that's where you'll spend most of the time. Your fights. So that's primarily the first thing that the devs want to get right. And then all the things on the sides, like summoning, menus, saving progress for players, items being saved. That's really just it's really gonna take a bit for the MVP,
Yeah,
and
we're on like
making
tip of the
steady
iceberg.
progress. Yeah,
Now,
the
so
it's
good.
really but as I said before, making the systems the core gameplay mechanics for a video game is harder and way it takes way more time than adding content into these core gameplay mechanics. Making the game be able to load a map and a battle scene is way harder than telling what units to use, for example. So that's why it's taking a bit.
Additionally, too, uh, our first main directive with the game was outside of getting the sprite controller done was having the cutscenes finished because like the rest of the game, cutscenes are a very essential and massive part of the game. And we already have our cutscene system 99% complete relatively. It could use some minor improvements here and there with like the text and some dialogue changes. But since we already have that massive part of the game finished, we're now moving on to the sprite controller and the dungeon experience. And once we have both of those two pieces together, then it'll be the next step of menus and player save data, and that's when we can finally be more comfortable with the idea of okay, when is Recoded realistically going to be able to have some sort of release date? But until that time happens, we have to be vigilant on what we say to the community as to not get hopes too high that Recoded is right around the corner.
You wanted to take more questions?
Um, how many more questions do we got?
I have none. I would need to start taking them again.
We'll take we'll take three more questions.
All right.
And then let me see, is I was wondering if Kaz was maybe here still.
Will there be a 6-hour-long unskippable sex scene featuring Elder Gra?
What the fuck?
What the
No, that will not be happening. Oh my god.
People were still asking for it. Where's the 6-hour sex scene with Gra? We want it.
Oh my god. Yeah, that I think if we did that, guys, more than just Recode is going to be getting shut down. I think like I'm going to get shut down. We can't do that.
People are still obsessed with the 3DS. That's crazy. All
What
right.
what do you guys find so funny about the goddamn 3DS? I don't get it.
There's a lot of question about the funding. We've mentioned before, it's good to read the FAQ on that. It's pretty much all explained on there. There is no funding, and there will not be, even if it's non-profit, for minimizing the risk of a cease and desist, because we are not using our own assets. We're not making a game of our own IP, and bringing money into this whole process would just amplify the risk of cease and desist. You can read the FAQ for more detail on that. On the old main menu, was the letter RC a prediction of Recoded?
Wait, I'm sorry.
On the old main menu, was the letters RC a prediction of Recoded?
On the old main menu, predictions RC. I'm honestly not too familiar with what you're asking. On the old screen?
Well, there's a question about linking all accounts that is also explained in the FAQ. I cannot stress this enough, summoners. You should probably read the FAQ before making sure that your question is already not answered. Old accounts are not recoverable. Oh no, I
Oh,
think
raid
it's not
class.
about that.
Okay.
You all no, it's not about old accounts. It's about current accounts. Will you all be uh, able to have a way to link like Facebook or Google for account backups? I think it was mentioned with Discord, right?
Yes, Discord is going to be our main platform that we look at because it seems like it's going to be the most stable long term for hosting that feature. However, we are going to be very adamant that players link up through multiple systems, like primarily an email. That way, in the event that Discord does shut down in the next 50 years, it's going to be extremely unlikely that your Gmail account or Google is going to cease to exist in 50 years. So you'll have multiple methods of logging in and saving your account data, but we would heavily suggest all summers to link up to all possible save datas. That way, there's no chance of a backup being lost, save data being scrambled with any server issues that could ever arise, and of course, as an ultimate failsafe, there will be a locally saved file on the player's computer.
Question is very good, I think. Will you be using AI to help assist you in coding and character design?
Uh, we've already used a little bit of AI for our grand upscaling and making the textures look better, more so the maps in the game. As far as using like AI art to make entirely new scenes or make entirely new characters, we probably won't go that route because we're very aware of everybody's general taste of AI, myself included, and we already have enough talented artists on the team to where we would rather show off their work and creativity rather than throwing it through a computer system. So AI
Because
will be
you're talking
used.
about generative AI?
Yes, generative
Not
AI.
really.
Yes, no generative AI. But for things that can be upscaled, that's primarily going to be our only use for AI.
Yeah, because everybody needs to keep in mind that the original game was like ultra low quality. like ultra low resolution because it was running on phones. So it was like uh, the old logo's resolution was like 900 by 700, something like that.
Yes.
It was very very low resolution. So in the grand upscale, the thing we've done is upscale the backgrounds, but that's the only use of AI we've had. When it comes to generating new assets, I don't think that's necessarily a path that we want to go for. That we need to go for and that we want to go for.
Yeah, like we discussed earlier with like the unit art contest, I was a really big fan of those back in the day, and I would love to see the community uh, explore their creativity on that aspect again. And I don't think it would be very fair if we had generative AI and then pushed that further than allowing the community to push their own desires, their own requests into the game. So using it where, like mentioned, for upscaling the low resolution textures or the maps, but for adding new characters or new content, we're going to be staying strictly away from that.
Do you want another question?
Uh, see, about an hour and a half. Let's take one final question, and then we'll wrap up.
I think that's a good question. People want to know the general consensus about or opinions about Brave Frontier Legion. A lot of people have asked, "Have you seen Brave Frontier Legion? What it looks like? What do you think about it?"
So I have seen Brave Frontier Legion. There really isn't too much to go off of just yet. It does kind of look like a cash grab, if I may be honest. Though it's still hard to say at this moment because, again, we don't really have any definitive resources showing us what the gameplay is like or what it's going to be. There is an app on the Google Play Store currently available, but you have to pre-register for it as well as have your region set to Japan. I did happen to sign up for it. I do have it already pre-installed on my phone, waiting for the release date. So once this does release, I'll more than likely cover it for a brief time. Uh, of course, seeing what the experience is about, see if there's anything that in this game we could learn potentially for recoded to make it another iteration, kind of like how Rexona was in a sense. Learn from that game, see what worked, see what didn't, and then try to apply that to ours where we can. Uh, I of course want nothing but the best for them. That the game does succeed and that Brave Frontier does continue to live on and get back to its peak of mobile gaming like it was back in 2014. However, the steps that they've been taking with Brave Frontier as a whole, with the delays and stuff, hasn't left me with the best faith so far because we also have been waiting for Brave Frontier Versus for quite some time, and that's also been delayed, I believe now for the third time. So I do want to see it do well. I want to see the game pop off, be just as amazing as before. But this is two projects now where they've released and hyped it back up to the community, and we still have yet to see even an inkling of gameplay. So, like I said, there's not really too much I can comment on regarding it. I'll play it when it comes out. We can all do another. If anything, I'll probably play it during a Q&A if it does ever release at that time. But I don't see myself not supporting the game. I don't see myself not talking about it or discussing with other summoners in the Discord or the YouTube. But we just gotta wait and see. That's really all we can do, right? All right, I think that will do it for us. I'd like to thank everybody for all their time today. Thank you, Jocab, for being here, helping take down questions and helping give out answers.
Glad to be here.
For everybody in our YouTube chat, thank you all so much for watching. You guys are great support. Everybody in our Discord, same to you guys as well. Great support. Love to see everybody come out here today. If your question was not answered today, do not worry. We did a poll back on our Discord last month on how awesome, or sorry, on how often you guys would like to see more Q&As from the Recoded team. We'll be doing another one come in August. Not sure on the exact date yet, but if you do have another question that you would like answered, you can ask us in the Recoded server, discord.gg/recoded, if you're not already in it, or you can click on the description below. We'll have a link posted there for you. Otherwise,
FAQ.
or yeah, and the FAQ as well. Definitely check out the
I gotta
FAQ,
remember
guys.
everybody read the FAQ. There's so many questions asked during the Q&A that are in the FAQ. So if you want more details about, when this will release, what with the collabs events, how the servers will work, do you plan on being copyright strike by Gumi? It's all in the FAQ. So definitely give that a read to have more detail. The link is in the description and pretty much everywhere. It's on the website. The FAQ itself is on the website. It's on the Discord as well. So definitely give that a read.
Before we do head out, I would like to see if I see FaZe, one of our coders, is in chat. FaZe, would you like to talk with us for a second?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'll talk for a bit.
All right. So we're going to be having a massive update coming towards the end of the year, and FaZe is one of our new coders for the project. And just before we end off here for today, FaZe, would you like to give everybody a little bit of a tease as to what you've been working on?
I've been doing chests, getting some of the battle items look nicer, a couple of quality of life stuff like the wave transitions between different stages. Probably a lot more by the time the end of the year comes around. So we'll see what I can get done.
Alrighty. Very exciting stuff coming for you guys. We're going to have a very big celebration come the end of the year. FaZe and the rest of the coding team have been working very hard. Royals, FaZe, Blue, Afterlife, all of our coders doing exceptional work for the team. We're also going to have a lot more to show off from our art department, as well as another track from our music composer, Faceless. So we still have another update to come, the Recovery Reduction, which is also going to be a massive gameplay changing update coming forward. But just letting you all know, we are cooking up a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and we're really excited to share it all with you. So without further ado, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you again for all of our YouTube members as well. This was the first time trying out a live stream for the Q&A. Glad to see everything worked out fine. No issues or problems on that front. And I hope you all have a great rest of your mornings, days, evenings, or nights. And we will see you all in the next update or next Q&A. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye.